Welcome to Conscious Conversations, a place where East meets West, a place where conversations and ideas will challenge your minds, expand your consciousness, awaken your heart, and make you think more deeply about yourself and the world.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Conscious Conversations. I'm Anthony Profeta, here again with Wes Gordon. How are you this week, Wes?
Good. Very good.
Good. Excellent. Always good to see you, chat with you, talk with you. And today we have a sort of interesting little concept, a little idea that's been stated in many ways. I've actually once did read about it in a book by Derek Shivers, in which he started one of his chapters this way. But he asks the question, do fish know they're in water?
Right.
And so a fish doesn't know it's in water. And the ironic thing is, if you've probably tried to, if fish could talk, and you could ask a fish, hey, do you know what water is? It would probably say, water, what's water? And, it's immersed in it, it's swimming through it, it's all around it, it's surrounded by it, but yet it probably doesn't see it. Like the same way with us and air. There's air all around us, right, but we don't think about the air being around us, and we don't really see the air. So this fish is in water, and the even more ironic thing is it doesn't see it, it probably doesn't know it's there, but yet it's so life-giving to it. Yeah. It's the life force of that fish, right? And so maybe if fish have a consciousness like we do, maybe they realize there's another reality once they jump out of the water, and then they realize, oh my God, if I stay out of here too long, I'll die, because now they don't have that life-giving force that they were in before. Right. So, and many fish, I don't think really jump out of the water. So millions or hundreds of thousands or however many fish there are in the sea, the majority of them are in the water, unaware of this life-giving energy around them. And some can say that's sort of like symbolic of us and this world, except maybe a little bit backwards. You could say that when we were in the garden in paradise, we knew and saw God was there. We knew God was there all around us. And that would be like us when we're out of the water. And now in this world, we've come in, and now we're in the water, unaware. We've lost sight that there is this life-giving force that is within us and in the world around us, but we don't perceive it. Yep. And so what is your sort of take on this whole idea?
Well, that's how this come to me in a meditation. I was like, I've got a little post on Facebook about godfish in the water. Right. But I was like, how would I explain water to a fish? It just kept jumping out at me after I'd written this. It's like, that's almost impossible, because as far as that animal's concerned, that's normal. There's no difference. So how would you explain water to a fish? And I felt the same challenge trying to explain how God's everywhere all around you, but not perceived. Right. So it does nothing for you internally until you actually open that door for that energy to process through you. Right, and being everywhere is a concept that's been discussed and stated throughout the centuries and all the traditions, many of the traditions, in the word omnipresent. Yes. Meaning present everywhere, omni meaning everywhere. Exactly. Totally. And I was looking at this and I was like, okay, if God's everywhere, why is the world in such a shape it's in? Right. And I was talking to you earlier, and I was like, well, it's totally dawning on me that in reality, this world is godless. Right. But we've been given a program or a concept that God's everywhere, and this world should be so much better. This is a true statement that it should be. But what I'm discovering is we are actually the transitional focal point of infinity, right, for this energy to come through and be demonstrated out through the world. Yes. Until that takes place in your consciousness and in your walk, and you do that, this world, it only has that level of God. Right. So technically, that's why this world is like it is, because it's living under the law of duality, and it doesn't have God operating in it. Absolutely. I always say that, it's not God's responsibility to make a heaven of this earth, it's ours. Yes. And the way we do that is becoming better channels and better expressions of the divine essence, of the God force, of the,
our true self, whatever you want to call that, manifesting that more regularly in our walk, in our lives, and to the world around us. In one of the shows we did, I said, I believe that it's our responsibility to become channels through which God can love the world through us, or through which the love of God can enter through us. And that, I believe that is an important part of our purpose.
Yeah, so technically we're all prodigal sons and daughters
returning home,
running around doing our own thing, and some of us are calling it God.
Right.
But like I was telling you earlier, it looks like to me that's part of the program at this point, is go play with all your toys as hard and as fast as you can, jump off the cliffs, the mountains, have all these experiences, get all this wealth, get all fame and fortune, and eventually when you get done playing with all that and you're still empty,
right, the void,
that you'll stop and say, hey, there's something more, but I don't know what it is, and you'll turn around, which we were talking about, the word repent means to take a different direction, or turn around. And that's when you'll make the shift and realize there's a divine channel in you that's just been screaming and dying to be expressed and opened up. Absolutely. So more life could flow through you. But we've shut that down because of all of our physical distractions in this world and the way that we think.
Right. Oh, yeah. And that's a big part, too. I mean, a lot of tradition, if God is everywhere, the most common question would be, well, then why don't I see him or her or it, whatever, it's not a him or her, it's the essence and totality of everything. But why don't I see God if God is everywhere? And many traditions say, well, you need to, raise up your level of consciousness. You need to resurrect your soul body. You need to, raise your vibration. All these sort of, other labels in terms of what we need to do in order to see that. It's like we begin to see the world through a different level of consciousness. And once we reach a certain level of consciousness, we do begin to perceive God in everyone and all things. Yeah. We begin to recognize that it's the same light behind my eyes, that is the same light behind your eyes and everyone else's eyes out there. It's the light of the divine light within us all. It's the same life force that is giving rise to each and every one of us. Whether we're male, female, black, white, yellow, or anything else, right. The same life force energy has caused my cells, the cells in my mother's womb to split from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to the 57 trillion cells that are seated on this chair right now. And it's the same life force that's doing the same thing in each and every one of us. And, that God energy, once we begin to awaken and recognize that it's the same, regardless of if we're male, female, or anything else, we begin to see the world very differently. And we begin to recognize that every time we're interacting with someone, we're indirectly interacting with God. And if we can hold that consciousness, right. which is a hard thing to do, we see God everywhere. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says, and this is, through their perspective, God talking, for those who see me everywhere and see all things in me, I am never lost and they are never lost to me, which means that, I'm never lost. That once they recognize that, they see Brahman, which they call God, in all things, all beings, all life throughout the entire world and every place else. And they recognize that they are connected to that source at all times. It also says to fix your mind on me. So have your mind totally devoted to me, and then you will begin to see me everywhere. Jesus said that our purpose should be to love God with our whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. That means just be totally focused on God, and everything else will fall into place. Yeah. And, it's also said that the pure in heart will see God. Mm-hmm. Well, the pure in heart, I believe, are the ones who are devoted towards seeking the kingdom of God first, above all things. And the prophet Isaiah says that thou wilt keep perfect peace, the one who keeps his mind totally committed to me.
Exactly.
And so, I do believe that there is a definite possibility to see God in others, to see God in the world around us, but it takes a commitment of keeping our mind totally focused on that. And, that's where then this new world opens. That's when we become the fish jumping out of the water and realize, oh, there's another reality to this.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's supporting you and holding you up the whole time.
Yeah. But you don't even know.
You don't know it. Exactly.
Yeah, but I think we need to take a quick break here, but we're going to continue this talk on, perceiving God in the world around us and how to do that, and continue more on this topic when we come back after these messages, so please stay tuned. Welcome back to Conscious Conversations. We're here today having a conversation about, why don't we see God in the world, even though that many traditions say he's omnipresent and there all the time. And yeah, I like something you were saying before the break, in which you were saying, we get so caught up in this world and we play with all of these distractions and all of that. And I believe that if we really are committed to truly wanting to find God, to see God, that, we need to make time for God and focus our minds more on godly things and coming to know God. The Hindu sage and saint Adi Shankaracharya once said that when you were a child, you were busy playing with your toys, sort of like you just said. He said, then in your youth, you spend your time looking for a partner. And then you start, starting a family. And then you start earning money. And then you get to the point where you retire, and then you worry about keeping or making your wealth last and your health last, right. And then you die of old age. He says, when are you going to find time to look for God? And I believe that's a very true statement. We get so busy with this world and distracted by so many things. Even spiritual things can be a distraction at times. And so what's your take on that part too, and how do you combat that?
Well, that's one of the elements I see, that we are so caught up in knowledge today. I see a world of spirituality that's they're full of, it's all in their head. Yeah. And they're not making the heart connection. So that energy is not really flowing. They're living from up here. And I'm guilty of this of myself. How many days have you gotten up and actually lived connected to your heart and how you feel and everything you did through the whole day?
Heart-centered, yeah.
Yeah, I don't do that. I did it more as a child, less as an adult. But I think that's one of the missing elements, is that heartfeltness, because it's so deep and sincere. And that's the only way we're going to change this world.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's the people.
Yeah, it has to be a transformation of heart and mind.
It's not the physical things out here. It's not all these programs or schedules. It has to happen within the human consciousness, the human condition.
Yes.
And when that love starts bubbling up and you can share it with others because you're full. Because see, a lot of times they tell you got to love your neighbor. And when you hear that, you're already over here suffering and so drained. Yeah. You're like, oh, geez, another thing I've got to do. I barely can take care of myself. How am I going to help someone else? Right. Well, the whole ideal is to discover what God is for yourself. Right. And not this Santa Claus on a cloud dude. Find out what the real, true essence of that God is. Yes. And it changes that whole dynamic of what you were talking about, because then there's a nurturing and an energy flow that starts to happen that's way different than what I was brought up in the religious world experience. So absolutely, that's how you're going to affect others. And then it just, it's a domino effect.
Yeah, and you bring up a fantastic point right now, because, and you've mentioned this many times on the show, that people still today don't really know what God is. They have this concept that they were told by somebody else, or that they, has been passed down through generations. And Saint Augustine, in his book Confessions, once wrote, "We can't love what we truly don't know." And so we have to really understand, when we say, I love God, or, I believe in God, what is it that we're saying we love, and what is it that we're saying we really believe in, and really fine-tune that to get an understanding of what it is to us, not just what we were told, because many people have fallen away from, religion or God, even the word God, because it's been sort of programmed into us that it's this guy on a cloud with a long white beard smiting people, or making a list like Santa Claus that you did good, you did bad, so you don't get any presents today. And that's not God at all.
That's the man-made interpretation of how to fit their rule book and an agenda for helping control. I mean, I think a lot of that came out of really good, heartfelt intentions. Right. They grabbed a hold of a truth out of the scriptures and they worked with that one truth. Right. But I think they missed the mark on the bigger overall, because they turned it into a man religion, a man God.
Well, yeah, and I also believe it's also looking from their level of consciousness at that point. So they're looking at the structure of maybe society, and there was always like a ruling power over there on earth. So why not, on earth as it is in heaven? Exactly. So there must be a hierarchy and some sort of overseeing lord or kingly over that too.
Yeah, and it's way different than that.
Absolutely.
And I've know myself included, a lot of people have mystical or spiritual encounters or experiences, and they get this charge. But there needs to be some solid truth behind that. And I used to complain that the world I was in, the how-to was missing in the Bible. And now I'm discovering the how-to is in the scriptures.
Yeah.
It's just subtle and it's veiled.
Yeah.
You have to come to a place in your own level of, wanting to know the truth before these doors open up to you. And, love God with all your heart, body, soul, and mind. Well, first find out what God is, and then contemplate or meditate on those very things. How do you do that?
Right.
Don't just take it as a word going across your mind and, that's just, I got to be good to people. No, it's way more than that.
Right.
And it's way deeper than that. But that's the subtleness of the power of these words. They have a far-reaching effect.
Yes.
And most people don't take it any further than just the sentence.
Right. Yeah.
So you got to do more.
You got to do more. And, throughout the ages, many of the traditions, they all said if you wanted to truly come to a deeper understanding of reality, you needed to sort of focus, control your mind, get under control so it's not wandering as much, so it's unwavering, so that you can hear the still small voice within. And then it's like the veils or the scales are lifted from your eyes, and that you will begin to perceive, this presence all around you. And, in some ways, it's like what the mind focuses upon, it begins to see in the world. In many of the Eastern traditions, the Buddha said, what we think, we become, and what we think is what we begin to see around in the world around us. Thoughts in some ways are the filter of seeing the world through this perception. And, your thoughts create your reality. What we dwell upon, we begin to perceive around us. And we've all had sort of experiences with that, in the sense that, let's say you were maybe thinking about buying a car. Maybe you're contemplating buying a BMW or a Toyota or something, whatever. And you can't decide, what model you want. So you're there and you're really focused and you're thinking about, do I want the Avalon or do I want the Camry? And then as you're going about your day and your week, all you see, like on the roads and in parking lots, are like Toyota cars.
Right.
Because that's what the mind's dwelling upon, that's what it begins to perceive. So they would say, if you keep your mind focused on God, spiritual things, godly things, you'll see the Spirit of God everywhere, because the mind is so focused and absorbed on that. And in the 17th century, 16th or 17th century, there was a monk named Brother Lawrence, who actually, his work was put into a book known as Practicing the Presence of God.
Yes.
And it wasn't anything that it wasn't a book he was writing. These were letters he wrote to other monks in the Carmelite monastery that they then put together and published. And they're all little exercises about really how to try to keep your mind totally focused on God at all times, so you will begin to see the presence of God everywhere. And it was things like, all the activities you're doing should be thought of as offerings to God. So when you're cooking or sweeping a floor, it's like you're sweeping that floor because God's going to come into that room at any moment. If you're cooking a meal, you're chopping those vegetables and cooking it with such love because you know that you're going to be feeding God when the meal. And if you really are that committed, which it takes a lot of strength to keep your mind that devoted to that aspect of life, he said that then God will begin, you'll see the presence of God in everyone in all things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I've firmly felt from the start, even as a young child, is this Christ energy that came into the world. It came here to liberate you. A lot of people think that when you get into religion or the Jesus or whatever, that you're somewhat delusional, and you're running you're running from responsibilities. You're wanting to make the world into some kind of fantasy, but that's not the message that I got. What I got was, this is to make you a more empowered human being that is loving and compassionate, and with a certainty the right things, the righteous things to do, and how to treat yourself and treat others. Right. And there's honor and there's love, and it's just a empowering lifestyle. Yeah. You're not as limited. I mean, a lot of people think, just serving God, you're just some kind of servant and you're just living less than. The joy and abundance and energy that flows from these actions, the words don't do it justice.
No.
And when you get with a group of people that have similar like levels of awareness and consciousness, there's a synergistic energy there that you just can't compare it to anything else. It's life-giving life force. And
it's infectious. Other people begin to feel it. Like when, it's like bubbling out of you. Jesus himself said, I came to give you life more abundantly. And so it's not like, life becomes, if you dedicate your life to God, you have to walk around with the sad face, be all, pious and meek and all of these sort of things. It's a joyful energy and loving energy that just bubbles out of you. Yeah. And it's infectious to the world for some people.
Right. And it's for everyone.
Yes.
This is not an exclusive group, gang, collection. My group is better than your group without you knowing what we know. You're not going to heaven. No, that paradigm needs to fade because that's causing more problems.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is an energy to bring love and connection and empower, the human race so that heaven does come to earth.
Absolutely. Yes.
And
through us.
That hasn't happened to this point.
No, thousands of years.
So you got to learn what God actually is. You got to learn what true prayer is, which is a form of meditation. And you get in alignment with that, then this stuff starts demonstrating through you and then through others that are picking it up also.
Yeah.
And then it does the work.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that most people don't realize is, I've got to do this every day. I've got to. Yeah. But there's an energy that picks you up and flows behind it that's like you can't explain it until you've experienced it.
Right. And really, you're just doing nothing except being the conduit or the vessel through which this energy can now become manifest and spread.
And that's how God is everywhere, but he's nowhere unless he's perceived.
Right.
Or it's perceived. That's why that statement I've used a lot.
Yeah.
So electricity in the wall, if you don't know how to plug into it, does you no good whatsoever. The same thing's happening here.
Right. You got to plug into God. But I think we need to end here for today.
Oh, yeah.
We thank you all so much. We appreciate you. Please, of course, let us know what you feel below on this topic. What are your thoughts on the topic? What do you think about perceiving God in the world and ways that maybe, you do, or activities or practices you do to help you awaken that within you? We hope you all have a blessed and beautiful day, and we look forward to seeing you again and talking to you next week. God bless. Bye-bye.